Well, I hit record.
Okay.
It is fair game. Anything being said into the microphones is getting recorded.
Okay, I guess we can do like a little intro. Hey, everybody. My name's Adam Braus.
Hi, I'm Scott.
And we have a guest with us on Solutions from the Multiverse today, Tom Charron. Welcome, Tom.
Hi, guys.
Do you want to tell us about yourself a little bit? Like, what's your title? What's your role?
Sure thing. Yeah. So I'm a co-founder of an organization called the California Ranked Choice Voting Coalition.
Great. And that gives a little bit of a foreshadowing into what we're going to talk about today.
I'm going to need a lot of information because I am at a very low level of knowledge when it comes to ranked choice voting. So this is perfect for me.
Okay, maybe we should start with the solution, and then I brought Tom here to help me because I also am not a total expert. I just think it's part of the solution, and Tom was so gracious to volunteer to come. So maybe I'll share the solution, and then we can unpack it, and Scott can bring the questions.
Okay.
And Tom can bring the answers, and I can just sit here and just kick back. Okay, so I have to defend the solution. Okay, so here's the solution. So ranked choice voting is great, or at least cool. We should adopt it at the highest levels, president and senators and congresspeople, mayors and governors and stuff. But it's hard to get people to change things at that level because there's high stakes and people don't know what it is. So I think that our first place we should really hammer ranked choice voting is high school prom queen and king and class president, and also then college student council. And that's the first place we should just contact all the colleges and high schools and get them to all use ranked choice voting. Because then when they're older, they'll be like, why aren't we using ranked choice voting to vote for governor?
Everyone will be like, I remember that. We did that for
that's what we did.
Selecting our prom king, prom
right,
queen.
Exactly. Okay, that's the solution. Tom's going to tell us why that either is a bad idea or harebrained. I think it's we have a scale, harebrained is right in the middle. That's fine. We're good with harebrained. Totally ludicrous. That's down on the scale. Up on the scale is very highly plausible.
This is definitely an odd foot in the door way to get something that you're intending to ultimately have overtake all of our election situation.
Overtake makes it sound like it's evil.
Yeah. See, this is me not knowing what I'm talking about. I don't understand.
We should say take over. Oh no, that sounds more evil.
All right. So Tom, I'll be honest. The first thing I know about ranked choice voting is the recent thing that have come into the news from the Alaska elections. That's where it popped into my head, and I'm like, it definitely put an emphasis that I don't understand all the aspects of what it is at all.
And I don't know what he's talking about. What's the Alaska thing?
Yeah, so Alaska has just instituted ranked choice voting for their statewide elections. They're the second state to do so after Maine. And
we're working out from the extremes.
Yes. Yeah. You go all the way left and all the way right.
Yeah.
So Kansas will be the last state after it slowly gets to the middle.
Yeah. Maybe it will.
Okay, got it.
Yeah. So in Alaska, Scott, probably what you have heard about is there was a race, actually a special election to replace, I think it was Don Young, who passed away while in office. And so it was Sarah Palin and one other Republican and a Democrat that were all running against one another. And there were some more candidates, but some dropped out. And so essentially it was a three-way race. And because Alaska voters approved ranked choice voting in 2020, they were planning to use it in the November regular election, but they got to use it a little early because of this special election. And it gave a result that surprised a lot of people, which is that it elected the Democrat and neither of the two Republicans. And so that sort of made national news also because Sarah Palin is a national figure.
Yes.
Everybody knows who she is.
Right.
And so, and she initially came out swinging and talking very negatively about ranked choice voting. It's really interesting because we are about a week away from the general election when we're recording this.
Mm-hmm.
And her tune has been changing because I think she's realizing that if she wants to win, she needs to stop attacking the method of voting and also stop attacking her opponents so much, which is the whole point of ranked choice voting, is that you don't attack your opponents as a candidate in a ranked choice election, because it harms you in a way that, using today's election system that we use in most places in the US, you don't lose any points for slinging mud and doing really negative campaigning.
Right.
But with ranked choice voting, you do.
How does that happen? I'm having a hard time imagining, how does it negatively affect me if I sling mud in a ranked choice voting election?
It's a great question. So in ranked choice voting, when you're running for an office where there's one seat, the rule is in ranked choice voting, you have to get a majority of the votes, 50% plus one vote. You cannot win with less than that.
A plurality.
You can
just the most of a bunch.
Exactly. And so the way that elections are run in most places in the US is that if you get a plurality, you can win.
So if 3 people are running and you get 38%, the other person gets 20, or 30%, the other person gets 27%. The person with 38% wins, but only 38% of the whole voting population even chose them. So really they have 60-some% of the people don't want them to be the in office.
That's exactly
So that's not
right.
great. That's not a great outcome.
That's exactly right.
Okay.
And so what you see is with plurality elections, there's this incentive that you as a candidate, you just want to get that, let's say it's 38%, and you are willing to anger and alienate a whole bunch of voters as long as you do the math. And so every candidate has campaign consultants that are paid a lot of money to do all the math behind this, and they slice and dice and look at the electorate and they figure out, okay, here's your core audience, go out with this message, say these things, and you'll get these people to vote for you.
And that's all you need.
And that's all you need.
Because you don't need 51%.
Correct.
Yeah.
So with ranked choice voting, you need to get 51%. So how do you get 51% if there are more than 2 people running? That mathematically wouldn't work normally.
I was going to say a dumb thing, but that's smart. Yep, can't work. Okay.
But with ranked choice voting, it works because the other name for ranked choice voting is instant runoff voting.
I thought of this with regards to getting people to decide what to eat for a restaurant, right? So say you're hanging out with 4 friends. Do you think this is a good example?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so if you're sitting around with like 4 friends and you're like, guys, what food should we get? And it's like, well, we could get sushi, we could get pizza, we could get sub sandwiches, right? So you have 3 options.
Right.
If you ask your friends, they're not going to be like, sushi or death, right? They're not going to be like, I only want sushi, or I'm not eating. I hate you all so much.
You clearly don't know my friends.
Okay,
that's exactly what they are like. No.
Okay, well, friends who are more diplomatic, right? They'd say like, I'm in the mood for sushi, but if you want I'm cool for subs too. That sounds good. But I had pizza like for lunch. I don't want pizza. Cool. That's the kind of normal way that people, if you were sitting around with friends, that's the kind of normal way that they would like register what they wanted to eat with you.
Right.
And then we'd say, oh, okay, well, most people want, subs, but it's Bob's second choice, but it's everybody else's first choice. So we're going to go with subs. So it's like because everyone's registering when they vote, they're saying they're not registering to vote, but when they vote, when they're saying what they want, they say at that moment what's their first choice, second choice, third choice, as many choices as they want. Then you have all the information. Once everyone's cast the vote, you have all the information to pick the most preferred candidate.
Right.
Because it's the candidate that had got either the 51% of the first choices, then you're just done, or you go to the second choice. Then it gets a bit fuzzy for me exactly how that works. But
yeah.
How do you keep counting the first choices and then add the second choices?
So
or
it's great, Adam.
So this is where I went off a cliff of my knowledge.
Let's continue with the food
okay.
Analogy here. So
I did a good thing.
One
good thing.
So let's just say that sushi. I don't know. 41% of people ranked sushi first. Okay, and I'm not going to get these numbers right, but let's, for simplicity, then 30% ranked pizza first, and the balance, whatever that is,
29.
29%. Thank you. Ranked subs first. So subs got the fewest first place votes. Subs gets eliminated.
Oh.
And then what we do is we say, okay, all those people who wanted subs first, what was their second choice?
And those add to the first choices.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool.
So let's say that 70% of the people who really wanted a sub are okay with sushi. So they put sushi second. Yeah. So 70% of the 29%, those votes,
20% basically,
they get transferred to sushi. And the math, I'm pretty sure, would work out that sushi would then win. It would take sushi over 51%.
Cool. So if it's your first vote and you're not voting for the least popular candidate, your first vote gets to count. It doesn't go to your second choice just because in the first round nobody got it. Your first choice stays. That vote continues to count.
Yeah, until when your first choice gets eliminated, if it does get eliminated, you still get a voice. Mm-hmm. So in today's elections, all we get to do as voters is indicate one person. Mm-hmm. And the elections officials, everyone else has no idea if we love or hate all the other candidates, right? They get no information whatsoever. So you get a lot richer information out of this concept of ordering something, right?
Yeah, it sounds like it codifies more, like you're saying, more information into my vote, where before my vote says who I want, and like if it's 3 people and I vote for one, maybe the other 2, they register as equally not voted for. But in reality, maybe one person I really don't like and one person I'd be okay with. And that's not reflected in my vote. But when I can rank them, that information suddenly gets coded into my vote and is useful later, instead of like a winner take all scenario. Like what you're trying to move away from is reaching what more people would want more of.
Exactly.
Which is the ultimate goal.
Which is sushi. Wait, sorry, I got confused.
Yeah, no, I like that, because that I'm confused. At first, it's confusing to be like, oh, how does ranking people get me a more like a cleaner election at the end, where more people, what they want is borne out.
My brain goes in like a million directions with this because it's so cool and so interesting to like change the rule of like how we gather the vote a teeny bit. It has all these like cascading sort of effects. But it seems like right off the bat, like there would just be like, I mean, we call it like third parties, but to me, it's just like, it would just even be more members of the existing parties with different perspectives. I mean, you basically just have a lot more openness for many different people with many different ideas from many different parties to all be on the ballot. And then we'd actually find out what Americans actually want, instead of sort of just believing 50% of people want, 51% of people want Biden, or 49, or 51% of people want Trump. It's like, what does the American people really want?
Yeah, we talk about ranked choice voting giving voters more voice and more choice. So the more voice is what we were just talking about, right? That you can actually share more information as a voter, right? You get to give a richer data set as you vote. More choice comes into play when we start thinking about how ranked choice voting changes the incentives for candidates. So to your point, Adam, we get more choice, we get more candidates, because we also eliminate the spoiler effect. So there's this big dynamic that happens, and it happens within political parties, within ideological groups, within racial, ethnic, and gender groups as well, where often a candidate who's thinking about running for office is told, why don't you not run? Why don't you let this other candidate who has a little bit of a better chance and is going to pull the same voters that you are? Why don't you sit this one out? Because we don't want to split the vote or spoil.
Right.
We don't want to be the spoiler candidate.
It's kind of like how you don't want to release Ender's Game and Harry Potter 7 on the same weekend, right? Because like, which one are people going to go to?
Exactly.
But wait, how does the third? Exactly. How does so? But wouldn't ranked choice vote also have a spoiler effect, because people might choose like as their second choice one of them and their first choice the other, and then but
there's no penalty whatsoever
because when they get knocked out, the other one gets counted with
Bingo.
the first one, no matter which one it is, no matter which one's first, which one's
exactly.
second.
Exactly. And so what we
like Ralph Nader, Ross Perot, these like
Exactly.
spoiler votes would have been just sort of, they would have been in the data. We would have seen, oh wow, people really liked Ross Perot. 20% of people, or 19% of the population put Ross Perot as their first choice. But then their second choice would have been whoever, whether it was Republican or Democrat.
Exactly. Yeah, Nader and Perot are two very well-known spoiler, quote-unquote, spoiler candidates.
Right. Bernie in the Hillary sort of campaign.
During the primaries,
Yeah. So it basically stops it from being really a two-party system.
Well,
or does it still have some incentives to still have two parties?
It doesn't necessarily stop it. And there are a few different flavors of ranked choice voting. Some of them are more likely to bring in smaller parties. Others are less likely to do that. And there's a whole bunch of nuance there. But yes, in general, if you are a Green Party supporter, if you are a Libertarian Party supporter, ranked choice voting is very much of interest because you may not necessarily have your candidate win, right? It still is a very tall mountain to climb to get to 51%. But you can have your candidate maybe pick up 5% of the vote. And more importantly, the eventual winner will know, 3% of people that eventually voted for me second or third, they actually chose the Green candidate first. I should probably go look at that.
So it wouldn't just be Green Party people who are like dyed in the cloth. I don't know, Green Party people. I mean, it's a small number of people. It might even just be environmentally friendly Democrats.
That's right.
Could actually be like, oh God, I can almost like loosen my tie and unbutton my top button. Hey, I get to actually, I get to really vote my conscience in the first place, even though I know probably the first place isn't going to win, but it's not going to be a throwaway and it's not a spoiler.
That's exactly right.
So Tom, well, in application, what would this look like on ballots? Like the ballot I have now, I get to choose between two names. What would be different if ranked choice voting is the way of having my election here in California, I guess?
So we actually have ranked choice voting in several cities in California.
San Francisco mayor is ranked choice, isn't it?
And the Board of Supervisors in San Francisco, and the Oakland City Council and mayor.
Okay.
And Berkeley's mayor and city council, San Leandro, several other cities in the state are using ranked choice voting. San Francisco's been using it for 20 years. Actually, I take that back. It got passed by voters 20 years ago. They started using it, I think, in 2004.
So we use it for certain. So you can have a ballot that some positions are ranked choice and other positions are first past the post or whatever we want to call it.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay. So you can have a mixed ballot.
Yeah.
So you're asking, what does it look like for those races?
Is that ideal? Do you want a mixed ballot or do you want it to be ranked choice, the whole thing to be ranked choice voting, essentially? Because it seems like if it works and is helpful in some areas, it would be helpful in all areas, or is that just my lack of experience with this, trying to overextend it?
No, it would be helpful certainly in all standard elections that we have in the U.S. It absolutely would be helpful. And back to your question, Scott, about what does the ballot look like? There's a few different ways to do it, and it depends on what voting equipment a given city is using. It can look like a grid, right, where you have the candidates in the columns on the left, and then you have you fill in the bubble
on the right.
Exactly. Okay. Other times it looks like ballots that a lot of us in California are familiar with, where you're completing the line, right? There's the arrow, and you take a pen and connect it, and on those ballots, it's multiple columns of the same candidates listed over and over again, and it says pick your first, then pick your second, then pick your third, so on and so forth.
Have we thought of using maybe America-themed little stickers that you're given, and the bald eagle would be 1, and flag would be 2, and then
Well, then we have to have a fight over why does bald eagle get to be 1 and flag has to be 2.
Well, we could vote on it.
You could have a ranked choice
voting.
vote.
Yeah.
On that.
But without the stickers,
it's RCV all the way down.
Without the stickers to do the vote, how are we going to vote on which stickers?
We can start with just a color sticker scheme where blue is the first one and then red is the second one.
But then how do we decide on those? Well, obviously a ranked choice voting.
Absolutely. That's clearly the next choice.
But then how would we... Okay. Chicken, egg. I got you. I got you.
That could be the next stickers. Chicken, then egg, then chicken again. It gets confusing, but...
No, I think that's the regular... No, I think that's the process. Chicken, then egg, then chicken again is, I think, the regular way it goes. So then, Tom, is it you said San Francisco voters voted on this 20 years ago. Is that a thing where place by place it becomes a thing that gets on the ballot, which is like, should we proceed in the future with ranked choice voting in X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. And is it by race, or can you do it by whole state? Could you say, we're going to do the whole ballot? It sounds like what you said with Maine and Alaska.
Right.
They were like everything.
It's by jurisdiction. And so a jurisdiction might be a city, it might be a county, it might be a state, it might be the federal offices at some level. So in practice, the way this works is like here in California, it's been passed by voters in a number of cities. It has not been passed at the statewide level yet in California, as it has in Alaska and Maine. That's what the organization that I co-founded is working on. We're trying to get ranked choice voting passed at the statewide level.
So the other place that my mind goes to this is Civil War, right? There's all this like crazy stuff on Twitter and people saying, "Oh, the country's." Have you heard this? The country's going to descend into civil war.
I mean, I've heard people talking about divisive parts. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't that, I mean, when I heard that, I was like, holy cow. And I guess then the kind of meta discussion about this sort of kind of what sounds like a crazy claim is, I guess somewhat intelligent people are like, no, this is actually a possibility. Like it's maybe a distant possibility, but it's like a possibility. Just because of the January 6th stuff is like, oh my gosh, is this kind of like is an insurrection going to happen every time we have an election? Are there going to be contested elections? And it sounds like with the ranked choice voting, the person who wins has really broad support because they have at least 51% of the population, and probably going to be a little more than that is going to, because it's hard to hit it right on the head, 51%. Yep. So they're going to end up with, a lot of support, which makes me feel like chances of civil war go down. Like we're kind of reducing the chance of civil war.
That's right.
Well, that's good.
Yeah, I truly believe that.
Are you anti-civil war? Because this podcast is openly pro-civil war.
Wait, what? We are?
Scott,
I didn't know
come
that.
on. No, I'm joking.
I'm going to have a civil war with you in the podcast about whether or not we're pro-civil.
It's civil wars all the way down, Scott.
Oh, boy.
We're going to have to...
There was an egg, and then it cracked open, and there was a civil war inside.
Exactly, and then
I got you. And then the civil war lays an egg. I understand biology.
So I guess how does it reduce? What's the exact mechanics of it reducing that extremism?
Yeah, two big ways that it helps depolarize things, right? So one is that dynamic that we talked about before, where in order to win, so right now we incentivize candidates to polarize us, right? To find divisive issues, to fight culture wars, to focus
trans kids,
right? Yeah, all of those things.
Well,
right?
And when the election is all or nothing, they can characterize life as all or nothing when the win or loss of the election.
Totally. And there are a number of studies that show that right now in the U.S., we are more motivated by hatred of the other side than we are by love of our party.
Well, I was just talking to my dad about, because the election coming up in a week, and he lives in Texas, so I was talking to him about election stuff, and he was telling me, my votes this time are not so much voting for these people, but I'm voting against the people who are currently in power that I don't like,
Right.
And it's that, I hear that a lot. Yeah.
Right. So that whole dynamic, we incentivize politicians to, fan the flames of that with first past the post, winner take all elections. It is plain as day. A political scientist will tell you that this system that we use today is designed exactly to do that. It is to sort in political science language our politics. And we are overly sorted right now. People are at the extremes, and we don't need to be, right? We actually need to come back together somewhat. There can always be differences. There should always be differences in what people think government should be doing and shouldn't be doing. But the only way we're going to have like functional government that actually solves problems is if we have people who are wanting to find consensus, right?
Yeah.
They still want to represent what their voters want, what their values are, but they need to be able to find consensus. And ranked choice voting requires people to find consensus in order to get into power in the first place.
My mom said when Biden was running, I'm from Wisconsin, and my mom said, Biden is just blood pressure medication for the country. And I was like, oh, that's pretty smart, actually. You know, that's pretty smart. She's a doctor, so she kind of thinks in terms of doctor stuff. She's like, it's blood medication. She's, but then I look at the post, I look at what's happened since Biden become president. And if you look on Twitter or anywhere, it didn't lower the blood pressure very much. I mean, maybe lowered her blood pressure. She's a Democrat, but it didn't lower the country's blood pressure. But it sounds like ranked choice voting, it really is a blood pressure medication for the country.
Yeah.
It would actually make it so that just the whole pressure of the whole system would just come down a few notches. We could still disagree. We could still have differences, but it wouldn't make the politicians have an incentive, or like it wouldn't pay to ratchet things up to 10 at every single turn.
Right. We have social media to do that.
Yeah, thanks. And Elon Musk now can really fan the flames.
Yes.
Yeah, we can really turn it up to 11.
Well, and in the food analogy, you don't end up with 3 people who like pizza deciding that pizza is the place where all 5 of you go. If the other 2 people are like, I don't care where we go, just not pizza. You know what I mean? Just don't do that.
Right.
You're not forcing them to eat something they don't want.
Right.
That depressurizes a lot of pressurized spots right now, I think.
So I'm sure a lot of people are familiar with the verb that we now have, getting primaried. You guys heard this before, right?
Yeah,
So getting primaried typically means, if you're on the right, that someone is going to come in further to the right of you, and they're going to win the primary. And if you're in a red state or a red district, they get to win. Same thing can happen on the blue side, that you can have someone come to the left of you. And so anyone who is moderate is very scared that they're going to get primaried.
By someone more extreme.
Yeah. And so the word primary, now a verb, gets right to the heart of the issue, which is we have primaries for a reason. We need to winnow down the field so that we can actually get, right? If we had 10 or 15 or 20 candidates running in the November election, one of them could win with 5% of the vote, 10% of the vote.
Yeah.
Right.
Of the primary. So it's the most hardcore little extreme group could win.
Exactly. And so primaries, we use primaries today to winnow the field. The issue is that primary voters, the ones who actually take the time to go vote during primaries, are way more partisan. They're the far more motivated, engaged people that are going to be way more partisan. They tend to be whiter, older, richer than the country broadly. So it brings in a lot of problems with representation in terms of diversity across age, gender, race, ethnicity, so on and so forth. And so when you get rid of the primary, which is something that ranked choice voting can do, because now you can have 10 candidates in the general election and someone will still win with a majority. Because math.
Yeah. Because math, right.
And so by getting rid of primaries, that's a huge impact on reducing the extremism.
Right. Well, I got into a little, because I do a little bit of preparation. I know it doesn't seem like it, but I do sometimes do a little bit of preparation for these things. And I was on Twitter and I was chatting with people about ranked choice voting. And I was tweeting at right-wing and left-wing partisan handles, and I was saying, what do you think of hashtag ranked choice voting? Do you think it could help things? And actually I got almost equal engagement from both right and left wing, and equally positive / questioning, which was really cool, because I mean, these were people who were like, I mean, these are horrendous handles. I mean, both sides really. There were good people on both sides, but in this case, bad people on both sides. Very partisan handles. And I was saying, what about ranked choice voting? And both were coming back saying, hey, this is pretty cool. Yeah, I think that would be important. That would be good. But one guy came back, one guy or one, I don't know what they were, but they a handle messaged back. Actually, this doesn't really change anything because outcomes are almost exactly the same under ranked choice voting as under non-ranked choice voting. They link to something or whatever. Was that just trash on the internet?
Not necessarily, but it kind of misses the point. Okay. And so a couple of things about that. Number one is when it comes to electoral systems, right? These are very, very actually they're not complex things unto themselves, but there are very complex social dynamics going on behind the scenes. And so when you change an electoral system, it becomes impossible to run counterfactuals and say, what would have happened? Yeah. So it really is important it's tempting. Like we were talking earlier about Nader and Perot as spoilers. Mm-hmm. It would be tempting to say, if there were ranked choice voting, Bush would have won in 92 and Gore would have won in 2000. But that's not an accurate statement at all because the candidates change their behavior significantly and voters change their behavior.
Just like if you change the rules of basketball, players would play differently, coaches would coach differently.
Yes. So he may be saying, or she may be saying, if you compare one election to the next, and let's say that there was a move to ranked choice voting in between, and you got the same result or something like that.
Same person won.
Or if you zoom out and you say, well, it still is electing the same ratio of Democrats to Republicans or something like that.
Therefore, it doesn't matter.
Right. That's not an accurate statement. Mm-hmm. Maybe strictly in that sense it could be, but it's really hard to know the counterfactuals. It's effectively impossible.
You're what you started out with Palin. I mean, if Palin is actually regulating her own speech a little bit, right? Like lifting her foot off the accelerator of, this kind of radicalism, that already is an indication that, hey, this is actually having an effect on the way she plays the game because we changed the rules a little bit for the better.
Last weekend, she hugged the Democrat that she's running against.
Wow, she hugged the Democrat, like on stage or something. Like, there was a good debate.
Yeah.
Hug.
There's a photo of her.
And she was encouraging people to rank the Mary Peralta, I think, above the other Republican candidate.
That's exactly right. So
Scott's came into this and said, I don't know anything about this. He knows all
this is the only thing I know. It's the Alaska meme or the Alaska race from a couple weeks ago.
That's awesome. I don't know any of this stuff. So she was trying to. So there's this whole other kind of meta game that comes in that people as Americans now who don't have ranked choice voting, this would be like a whole new thing to us. Like, trying to jockey one of my opponents actually higher than one of my other opponents. That would start to happen in ranked choice voting.
Right. And by the way, that is one of the concerns that a lot of people have is they say, well, doesn't ranked choice voting let the politicians game the system? And if the definition of gaming the system is to look for common ground and consensus with your opponents and then point those things out, then yes.
That's all right. That's a good game. That's a good game to play. Yeah.
It's like I'm gaming this relationship. I got you a present and I care about you and I want us to work out. It's like, are you just gaming this, you manipulative jerk? You want this relationship to be great. I'm like, yes, I do. What?
So you admit it.
You admit that you are a manipulative jerk. Well, I just got you a present and we're going out to dinner. Like, I don't see what the problem.
Well, and like you were talking about the person who was responding to you going, well, the outcomes are all the same. Yeah. I mean, it is the same and it's not the same because ultimately in an election, one person is going to win the thing. And that's the way it is if it's a rigged election or if it's a really fair election. But the way that the people participating in the election feel about it changes. And if they feel like the process is better and more efficient and or reflects the will of the group of the people better, then that does change it. Even if the outcomes are the same, the process is not the same. And over time,
Right.
more confidence in elections creates more participation in elections, which creates
Yeah.
a better reflection of the electorate.
So wait, we haven't talked about the solution yet. High schools and colleges. Okay,
Right.
This is the youth of today. This is where we need to begin with the youth. So we go and we say, you need to pick prom king and queen, right? It's a vote.
Yep.
And you got to pick a class president. I guess they pick like secretaries and treasurers and stuff too. I don't know about those people.
There's definitely voting for
definitely
student government and
yes,
all that
student
stuff
government.
in high school every year.
And I don't think it's a hard ask to just be like, hey, why don't you use ranked choice voting? I feel like young people would be like, cool or sure or whatever or okay,
Yeah.
and then they know it and then they keep using it all the way through their lives. Kind of like, Apple. Apple does this very smartly. Ever since I was little, I had an Apple II when I was like 7 years old because my parents were like, we should probably have one of these. And, Apple gave discounts to schools to get apples into the schools, right? Because then kids would use it. And then when they got older, they were like, I want an apple.
Yeah.
Right. So like, shouldn't we be doing that exact same thing in the high schools and in the colleges?
You're totally right.
Yes.
That
I rarely get that. That kind of instant affirmation. Thank you, Tom. Not just in this podcast, but personally too. So this is good.
So I'll tell you, lots of universities, their student governments use ranked choice voting.
Oh, really? Okay.
So
Halfway there.
Here in California, I think all or almost all of the UC schools, so Berkeley, UCLA, UC San Diego, Santa Cruz, Davis, so on and so forth, all of their student bodies use ranked choice voting today.
Awesome.
I looked up to see if I could find any high schools that talk about using ranked choice voting. I found a few, not very many. I don't know if that means that not many high schools are doing it or if it just doesn't get talked about very much. But there definitely are some high schools using it, and certainly lots of universities, Stanford as well, Sonoma State. I mean, like here in California, tons and tons. And across the country, I mean, if you took the top 50 or 100 universities, I bet 80 or 90% of their student governments are using ranked choice voting.
So it's already used
Yeah.
for college. But one of the biggest cleavages in American society is between, educated and college educated and not college educated.
Yep.
So high school might be the angle.
It's true.
Might want to try to trickle.
I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. Oh. Whoa. Double pat on the back. Affirmation. And then I don't know what the other one's called. Outthinking or something.
Wait, you have to
Cool,
stop
okay.
at 2 pats on the back because you don't have any more hands. So
I can borrow. Can't you, Scott? Can you just reach over?
I was just
When we get to the third pat, I'll just wink at you.
Well, isn't
You
a pat on the back supposed to come from somebody else? If you pat yourself on the back.
Sad. I think this is showing a little bit about me and my life. Been a lot of self pats. Let's just put it that way. I do like that as a joke to tell people. Everyone raise your hand. I do this with my students. I'm a professor. I do this with my students sometimes. Everyone raise your hand and reach back and pat yourself on the back. Students all laugh. Well, they don't all laugh, but some of them laugh.
So in high school, you would have to get people on. You would have to get. How do you even get into high school?
It's all about the student to student connection, in my opinion. So you take these colleges that are already like all about it, and you say, "Hey, this is what I would say. I mean, you're in charge of the actual organization. If you want to do it, it's up to you." But what I would do is I would say, "We have all these. Oh my gosh, all these colleges all do this already. Let's contact them and say, hey, do you want to be the president of an organization on your campus? It's called the Ranked Choice Voting Advocacy Organization. And your job is to contact all your local high schools. Like everyone who joins the club has a high school. They all go back to their own high school and say, I go to Berkeley. I go to Stanford. And you know what we do at Berkeley and Stanford? We do this. That's what I think you guys should do. Because I was, in your high school and I was on student council and we should have done it that way. And they know those people because, they went to school with some of them and, and then those high schoolers all go, oh my God, I'm talking to someone at Berkeley and they're cool because they're in college and they're talking to me and they're saying that ranked choice voting is a thing and I should do it and they'll do it, So I think that's how I would do it is get those colleges that are already doing it and have them push it down, into the high schools. Because if you talk to a high schooler and you're like a grown up, they're going to be like, who the hell is this? Like you can't get any respect,
No, you don't understand. I'm trying to affect your elections so that I rewire your brain so that later on you rewire our elections while I'm an old person.
Like,
it's great.
They're like, okay, boomer, right? They're like, they don't want to hear that.
Just listen to me. Do what I say, teen. You think is that the
and
that
keep
the
those
strategy?
skateboards off my yard?
Oh.
Yeah, exactly. That's what they don't want to hear. But the college student, they'd love to hear from them.
I think you're right.
I will say, I think that the average high schooler, the average teen today is much more aware of political issues than I was when I was in high school, is much more engaged or involved in and maybe I'm just around more active teens than I was, but definitely they seem to be more aware and more worldly with knowing what's going on than I was, for sure.
There are actually high school students that are involved in the California RCV coalition, and I've been amazed. Like, I was totally not thinking about this kind of stuff when I was 16 years old.
Me neither.
They are. So there is some hope for the future.
Yeah. That's the real thing to do. So you get the college students to introduce it to the high schools, but the real wildfire is if you get the these kind of like really high functioning high schoolers. They want to always put stuff on their college application where they were like the president of something, or they started something, or they did this club. And their club that they can be the president of is, I contacted 25 high schools across the country and I got them all to adopt ranked choice voting.
Right.
Yeah. Berkeley admissions officer is going to be like,
right.
Yes, like
right.
Political flow science, you're in. You know, that's really cool.
Yeah.
And so the high school to high school, I mean, college to high school, you get that kind of, oh, you're in college. But high school to high school works really well because like the peer, they can like speak the same language, you know. And
I'm sold. I'm actually now mad that my current ballot will not let me rank, and so I'm just going to start writing like ranks, like number
grid,
1, number 2.
Yeah,
I'm going to start doing this to my own ballots.
Why shouldn't we be able to do that? It's like a write-in. It's like a write-in rank choice.
They certainly won't discount my entire ballot after I write and annotate and like put little paragraphs.
I'll get you
places.
the stickers.
I need the stickers.
They definitely won't.
You
throw
didn't
that
see
away.
my bald eagle sticker?
That's one.
You've discounted. You don't think this is a real ballot now? Okay. All right. Well,
all right. So you're saying this has already been so it's already been done in college, but it hasn't been done in high school. So it may be helpful. But if we did it, we'd have to wait until those people were like 50, right? I mean, that's the problem, is power doesn't really get passed on until you're like 50 years old.
I think it's a yes and.
So it's it's a piece of the puzzle.
Yeah.
And it's a long horizon thing.
Because Scott, you asked earlier, how does this actually like come about?
Right.
And you know, so shocking, election systems are chosen by election. Right. So we need people. Yeah. We need people to get comfortable with it, because really the single biggest thing that holds back reforms like this that are really common sense and pretty much everyone gets on board with, is just the status quo bias, right? There's just inertia. It's like, oh, that's new and
it's
scary.
I don't know it. Yeah.
I'm not comfortable with it. It seems weird. So there's just an immediate like, I think I'll just stick with my current system, you know. And there's back to like the incredibly high stakes, right? You feel like every election we're on the precipice of the country falling into civil war. So therefore, you can't possibly mess with the system. Like, we don't know what's going to happen if you do that. So there's just a lot of fear around changing things. And so the more that people get
openness
with
to changing things too. I mean, we can see, right, that, what do they say? The same word, character and opportunity. Catastrophe and opportunity are the same word in Chinese, the same character.
I've not heard that.
Anyways, it's like, never let a good crisis go to waste. But people are so like, oh my God, the system's so on fire. It's so crazy. It's yielding such crazy. We're looking for actually systemic change maybe too. So, I mean, maybe there's an opportunity there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. You do follow that up with, I'm comfortable with today's system. Really?
Really?
Are you happy with the results that are happening?
Yeah. Like, you like people, like armed group of people going to the Capitol on January 6th. Like, I mean, in my lifetime, I never thought that would happen. I always felt like America, like, we have our differences, but, the election is the election, and then we go about our lives.
Right.
January
Political violence is not something we're used to.
I mean, Trump kind of built us up to it, so when it happened, I wasn't totally surprised. But if I could compare that to like my 15-year-old self, I would have been like totally blown away. Like, I would have just been unimaginable.
Right. And
now there are 15-year-olds who think that's America.
Right.
America's where we have people storm the Capitol when they don't like the outcomes of elections. That's not good.
I think Tom, I like what you're saying because it tells me that it is, it's not the core of ranked choice voting isn't what scares people or makes people uncomfortable. It's just the unfamiliarity. And so it's the resistance is, like you're saying, the status quo bias, where they're like, I don't know, I'm already doing this thing. It's not causing me pain right now, so maybe I don't change it. But if you can get people a little bit at a time exposure to ranked choice voting in like certain races on their ballot or in high school or college or earlier, it's not an unfamiliar thing that people are going, oh no, what's this going to do? They're going, oh yeah, I know that. And I can see how implementing it would have a positive effect on everything.
Okay, so I came in here guns blazing with the high school thing. Okay, maybe that's a long horizon. That's like a 30-year horizon thing. Maybe worthwhile doing, but it's a 30-year horizon thing. Okay.
I'm imagining Farmer Adam, if he like plants seeds in the ground and he stares at them and he's like, whoa, what's going on? Why aren't these all right, and then you go to the store and get like full carrots and then plant those in the ground instead. You stand over and you're like, now I've seen the carrots.
Well, anyways, maybe there's a way to do a fast horizon thing to get people used to it, but it's not too hard to explain to people because people do it every day. I feel like anytime you're trying to get a little consensus of a group of people, generally you rank. Like today, at my college, people get to choose their like advisor. We call them coaches, your coach. And we say rank which coach you'd like first, second, third. People immediately do it. I don't need to like explain to them what I mean by that. I just say, duh, pick, first choice, second. And granted, it's not voting for something, but it's, if the first choice people, if that coach gets full up with coachees, then they get their second choice or whatever. And it's first come, first serve ranked. People understand ranking. So I don't know how much more familiarity do we really need. So besides getting familiarity, what's the process to like make California like Alaska or make another state like Alaska or Maine?
Yeah,
what did Alaska do?
Alaska had a ballot measure. And here in California, we'll need a ballot measure as well. So the good news is that there is a process to get it done. The bad news is it's really expensive to run ballot measure campaigns in California.
So who's going to pay for it? Are there big moneyed interests who want ranked choice voting?
Not really.
Damn it.
Not really.
Something told me that all the big money wasn't going to be making democracy any better. Rare.
Tom, with the organization you're working with, how are you guys affecting the change without like those huge donor influxes, or what's your strategy of getting that measure on the ballot?
Yeah. So we are focused on a few different things. Our long-term goal is to run a statewide ballot measure in California to get it done, which would mean all of the offices that we vote for on a statewide basis, like governor and controller and lieutenant governor and so on and so forth, attorney general, and the California State Assembly and Senate, and the federal offices, the people that we send to DC, like the House of Representatives, our representatives, that they would all be voted in using ranked choice voting. That's the goal. But it's going to take several years to build up both the money and just to build awareness across the state. So I mentioned earlier, there's a few cities that are using ranked choice voting already. Our near-term goal in the next couple of elections, 2024, 2026, so on, is to get more California cities using ranked choice voting because it's relatively
sort of a city by city strategy.
Yes.
Like locusts.
Yeah.
Sorry. That's not a positive.
More negatives here.
Sorry.
So getting more cities to adopt ranked choice voting is sort of the near-term focus. So.
And high schools.
And
just
high
throwing
schools.
it in there.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, got on the docket. Yes, high school.
And high schools.
Awesome.
So if Alaska changed in 2020, that's super recent.
Yep.
Has Maine been a ranked choice voting place for a lot longer than that, or was it really recent as well?
2016.
Whoa.
So this is like right now happening.
Yeah.
This is like a big
So
deal.
San Francisco was the first sizable city to adopt ranked choice voting in a long time. Now, the irony is that this also happened once before, about 80 years ago, during the progressive era, when there were a lot of reforms, like after women's suffrage. There was a lot of energy
to make voting better.
Yeah, to make voting better. And so a number of cities actually did start using ranked choice voting at that time. It actually got repealed in a bunch of places. And the reason it got repealed in those places back then is that the selling point of ranked choice voting at that time was to break up party machines in cities. So you had, you think about like Chicago or New York City, where the problem they had 50, 60 years ago was you had these really powerful party bosses that were just extremely corrupt. And so ranked choice voting was used to kind of diminish their ability to like pull all the strings in the background.
Yeah.
And the issue is that they were still very powerful even after ranked choice voting passed. And so they were able to get it removed in a fair number of cities. 50, 60 years ago. So I think every state or almost every state has at least one organization focused on getting ranked choice voting to happen there. So this is happening across the country. In fact, Nevada is going to vote next week about adopting ranked choice voting.
That was my next question. I was going to say, if it went Maine first and then Alaska, do you know who's on the horizon coming up? And it sounds like Nevada has one next week
for statewide,
where that would change it so that from then on it would be like how it is in Maine and Alaska, where they would get ranked choice options for their elections going forward.
Yeah, they actually have a weird quirk in Nevada where they have to get it passed twice for it to actually take effect.
Really?
I don't know the exact reason why, but it has to win in 2022 and then it has to win again in 2024.
Interesting.
Maybe they want to be really sure that people want to change their election system.
That reminds me of the ancient Persians, who they would get really drunk and deliberate about a decision, and then they would get sober. They'd sober up, and then they'd deliberate again on the same topic.
That's smart.
And then they would see if they agreed. Their drunken selves agreed with their sober selves, and only if both agreed, then they would go forward with it.
I think that's great.
Maybe that's what Nevada's going to do.
I'll go back into the casino the following morning and go, no, you don't understand. My drunk self lost all that money at blackjack, but my sober self would actually like to replay those games.
And only if both agree will you then take my money.
You actually have to make me lose twice. This is Nevada,
This is the Nevada way. So there isn't like a real. So what you're saying is it's a bit like state by state. There isn't like a kind of national organization that puts all the states together and everyone gets in a room together and says, okay, how do we like as quickly as possible get as much of the country voting RCV as possible?
Every state's got really unique problems to solve and unique electoral dynamics. So it really does have to be a state by state solution.
Yeah.
And so there's actually a bill that's been introduced in the House of Representatives starting in 2019. It's been reintroduced each session since, called the Fair Representation Act. And the Fair Representation Act would make ranked choice voting happen at the federal level for the House of Representatives. Here's the rub. Guess who gets to vote that in?
The House of
Representatives.
The
House of Representatives.
Yes. And they're like, no, we know how to play this game. We don't want to change the rules.
Bingo.
Yeah. So it's got to be a state by state thing.
Yeah, because in some states, actually not in all states, in some states, the voters can choose through a ballot measure, like in California. Some states actually don't have that. They still have to go through their legislature.
So even if you go to a state, I don't know, I'm just going to pick a random state. Like let's say Montana doesn't have ballot measures. Maybe they do. People from Montana, I apologize. All of our Montana listenership is going to be outraged. They don't have a ballot measure. If they don't have a ballot measure, they have to then do the House of Representatives. They have to vote their own change to the rule, the game that got them into power. So it probably won't happen in states where there isn't ballot measures.
It can.
It's unlikely, at least as a first state.
Yeah. So actually, Utah is another good example. Utah hasn't adopted ranked choice voting statewide, but they have allowed it to happen in any city in the state that wants it. And that was a legislative driven effort.
It seems like any state that was supported by people who honestly believed in this idea of kind of lowering the blood pressure of the country would want to do it.
I agree.
Right? Because if they were like, I don't want, even if you're on, it doesn't matter what side you're on. Like maybe you're on the Democrat side and you're like, I'm sick and tired of hearing all this crazy stuff from both extremes. Or even if you're on the Republican side, you might be like, I don't want to have to go to rallies and like say these things. I don't believe in these things. I'm I'm just a normal citizen. It's the system that's actually forcing me to go and say things that are inflammatory and kind of attacky. I'd rather let's just lower the temperature in the room here. So it seems like there could be support from both sides, even at the legislative level. Although maybe it's not the first, maybe it's not the highest. Maybe the ballot measures are kind of the first.
Yeah, voters are more in favor of ranked choice voting than elected officials are.
Yeah, it gives them more. It's more of a toss-up for elected officials, but for voters, it definitely gives them.
There's just a lot more math and a lot more considerations that a elected official is going to do as a self-interested person.
Yeah. But the voters, it's like, I get more choice. Of course I want that.
So once you get the question to the voters to respond to it, it's a win. But the real hurdle is trying to get that question out there, trying to get it open.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Very interesting.
Well, I mean, it worked on me. As soon as I come in here not understanding very much about ranked choice voting other than just what's included in the term. And by where we're at now, I'm like, yeah, this is hugely helpful, and I would be in favor of this on any and all ballots. So it's a good example of how if you just let people know what this is and what it would do for them, you get support like almost immediately. It's not controversial in that way.
Yeah, maybe this will be the next big thing. Maybe this will be a big push. It'd be great because it would just, it would just make watching the news better. That's what I want. I just want to be able to watch the news and not have it be like crazy people saying crazy things all the time,
Yeah.
I remember when I was like a kid, we would watch the McNeil Lehrer News Hour, right? On PBS. Mm-hmm. You guys know this thing?
Oh, yeah.
But we didn't call it the McNeil Lehrer News Hour. I didn't learn that until I was like probably 20 years old that it was actually called that. We called it windbags.
I don't get it.
And we would say, my mom would be like, while your father's in the other room, he's watching windbags.
Oh.
And I thought... And we would just refer to it as windbags. It's like, oh yeah, Dad loves watching that. He watches his windbags. Okay. And I just thought that was the name of the show. I thought the name of the show was Windbags until I was about 20. And then I found out, no. That's just my mom making fun of what my dad was watching on TV. A bunch of bags of wind. Yeah. But if you get a chance to watch the McNeil Lehrer News Hour, that's what it used to be. It used to be like, intelligent people with differing opinions, like talking about things. And you could kind of argue you'd liked one way or the other better, and maybe one was a little more hard. Like maybe the conservatives were a little more hard nosed, and the left, the left was a little more kind of like idealistic. But it was kind of like a reasonable conversation. Now I can't do the news anymore. I can't really listen to it. It's
nuts. Completely different sets of facts.
Right.
Yeah.
And entertainment has become a more primary goal of a lot of the television shows more than information.
Yeah. I can plug though media that's not corporate backed. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff on the internet now that's independently funded. And when it becomes independently funded, it becomes a lot more interesting.
Yeah, Substack and things like that.
Exactly. You can get, I think the good comparison I've heard is media diet. So if you watch kind of the corporate stuff, then it's kind of like you eat a bunch of Doritos and Arby's all the time. That's kind of your media diet.
Okay.
But if you want to have like salad, no, Scott, eat salads and persimmons.
You're offering me a plate of Doritos and Arby's versus a plate of salad, and you're curious which way I'm going to go?
What if it's like Brussels sprouts that's like fried in like bacon grease?
You can put whatever you want in the salad
good, right?
that I'm not going to eat. I don't mind. I really don't. I'm going to be over here with my Doritos and Arby's having a good time. I don't.
What if it's like delicious steak? But it's healthy because it's, it's not,
it's natural.
It's not dungeon meat from Arby's.
What if I create a whole nother meal and then I put lettuce around it and tell you it's a salad?
Tell you it's a salad, right. Okay. Or like Thai food, they have the meat salads. Have you had this? LARP? It's delicious, but they're like salad. Go into a Thai restaurant, look under salad on their restaurant. You know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah.
It's like,
I do.
It's like salad, and then it's like pork salad, beef salad, chicken salad. I'm like, I like Thailand. I like Thai salads. This is great. There's barely any lettuce. Well, maybe should we wrap it up? Are we getting to the end here, Scott?
We might be. Yeah.
Okay.
I think we're covering it well. What I wanted to ask was, so if someone hears this and is really into joining up with ranked choice voting and helping this become a reality, what would be steps that they could take, or how would someone just listening to this get involved?
The plug.
And we can put things in the show notes too. So if you
great.
You can just tell us and then
Yeah.
we'll put it
So there's, as you might expect, go on the web. I'm going to give you 2 websites real quickly. There's a national organization. So if you're not in California, go to fairvote.org. Fairvote.org. And if you are in California, go to CalRCV.org. And that's the organization that I'm with. And both of us and a bunch of other really great orgs around the country are working on ranked choice voting and trying to get it done.
So wait, what was the first one again? The national one?
Fairvote.org.
And then the California specific one is
CalRCV.org.
Yeah, and we'll put it in the show notes.
We'll have them in the show notes as well.
Awesome. Yeah. Thanks so much, Tom. This is awesome. Thanks. And hosting us too.
Thank you for letting us invade your home.
The Sharon home.
For a solution here.
Right here, we're talking kitchen table issues at the kitchen table.
I love it. Well, this has been great. Thank you so much, Tom. Thank you, Adam.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Yeah.
And thank you for listening.
All right.
We'll see you next time.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.
Hey there. Thanks for listening to that episode of Solutions from the Multiverse.
Yeah, we're back with a little after roll. Hello.
Hey, after roll. Roll that after roll. So basically, we want you to subscribe.
Yeah.
And rate and review and tell someone, like, take your favorite solution and send it to someone who you think would like blow their mind to hear it.
Yeah, we love making the show. We're proud of it. And we're excited. We want other people to show. We know that the main way people find podcasts is word of mouth. I know that's true for me. I listen to my friends who also listen to podcasts tell me about ones, and I go, okay, I'm cluing into that. So we want to be part of that chain.
So thanks for being a part of Solutions.
Yeah. Thanks for joining us, and we'll see you again real soon.
Bye.
Bye.